1.2, we're going to be talking about characteristics of a graph. Before we do that, we have been doing domain and range for a while, so to review that, we need to make sure that we can handle that. Domain is your x value, range is your y. Domain on the x-axis moves left to right, so I'm going to find the farthest left point, which is here. Don't forget you have to highlight up to the x-axis. Notice that I'm highlighting up at when x is 0. We have a closed circle, so we are equal. And we are going to go over to the right, farthest right. That's right here. And x is 11 at a closed circle. So there's my domain. We can also write it like this, equals with brackets. So my domain starts at 0 and it goes to 11. My range is from the bottom to the top. We're talking about y values, so we're going from the bottom to the top. Notice that I have 3 lowest points, but they're all at the exact same number right here at -1. So I'm starting at -1. Again, I'm equal because of the solid circles. Range is y. And I'm going to go up to my highest point, which is 3 of them this time. And I'm going to +1. So my range, -1 to +1 equal. I can write it either way. Now, that is review kind of what we've been doing, different notations and domain and range. What they're going to ask us at this point is the minimum. They're going to be asking for that on a graph. Minimum wage is the lowest amount of money that you can get paid legally. A minimum on a graph is the lowest point on a graph. Notice here we have 3 lowest, but they're all at the same place. So the graph above has a minimum of, okay, your minimum falls at the y value, so it has a minimum of -1. Y is at -1 for a minimum. Maximum would be the highest. The maximum amount of money would be the highest amount possible. And a maximum is the highest point on a graph. Okay, notice again we've got 3 of them. And the highest point, we've already got it because it's our range, is y equals 1. My maximum is at 1 on this graph for y. So min and max relate to your range. We're talking about lowest to highest, which is how we do range, bottom to top. So these will relate to each other every time. The next thing, and the last thing that we're going to learn about these graphs, is they want to talk about intervals where things are happening. So they tell you over this interval, notice they're talking about x. So we're looking when x is 2, so I'm going to pick up a highlighter. When x is 2, there's where x is 2. All the way to when x is 4, right here. They want to know what's happening. Now, in order to do that, notice there is no point. So I'm looking up and down. Right here is when x starts to be 2. And I'm looking up and down. There's where x is 4. So they're asking about this section right here. What is happening? Is it an increase or a decrease? And I see that I started here and came down. That's a decrease. Okay? So when x was 2, there's my point. When x is 4, there's my point. What is happening is we are decreasing with y. So from x at 2, x at 4, we have a decrease in y values. So they ask for other decreasing intervals. So notice from this point here, I'm increasing. I don't want to highlight that. Decrease. I've got an increase. I'm going to decrease right here. When I do that, I look to the x-axis. So my decrease starts at 6, and it stops at 8. It is about x. Notice x was in here. That's why I'm writing this. You don't have to write it in set notation. We can write it in inequality. We're not concerned about being equal from 6 to 8. If you write an equal sign, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be wrong. Right here I've got an increase, and then this is my third decrease. So I decrease 3 times on this graph. My decrease starts at 10 because I'm talking about x, and it ends at 11. So from 10 to 11, I have my other decrease. So I've got a decrease on the graph from 2 to 4, from 6 to 8, and from 10 to 11. These are all x values. We're talking about x. Y is decreasing. Y values are decreasing, but I have to tell you when that happens on the x-axis. The next thing they're going to ask about is from 4 to 6. So I'm going to pick a different color this time. From 4, right here, so we're talking about this point, to 6 right here, notice there's my point. They want to know what's happening there. And at that point, we are having an increase. I'm starting at 4 when x was 4, and I'm going to when x is 6. That's an increase. So they're going to ask for other times where it's increasing. Notice we are increasing right here at the beginning of the graph. Again, increases are about the x value, so I'm going from 0 to 2. 0 to 2 is my increase. And I've got this increase, and then I have another increase right here. And the y values are increasing. Notice I started at y negative 1 over here, and I'm going all the way up to y is 1. They're increasing, and that happens when x is 8 all the way to when x is 10. So from 8 to 10, I've got my third increase. Okay, we're going to practice this again with another graph, the one that I have provided right here. First thing that we're going to come up with is domain and range. Again, domain moves from the left to the right. It's the x values, my left point and my right point. This time they both hit on the x-axis. We start at 0, we go to 6. Or we may write it as 0 to 6. Range, remember it moves from the bottom. Here we are at the bottom. That's really hard to tell. That's at negative 2. So right here we're going to go with negative 2.5 because you're not 100% sure, nor am I, exactly what that's counting by. And we're going to go to the highest point. Notice your highest point is here, here, they're the same. And again, it looks like they're at 2.5. Positive 2.5 this time, not negative. Okay, so my range can look like this, depending on which notation. Oops, I'm sorry, this. We don't want to use set just because it's not that hard to add this information in, but set's not our favorite. Okay, then they want the minimum values. Okay, the minimum is the lowest point for y. We already know the lowest point, it's right there, so it's at y equals negative 2.5. My highest point, we already know it, we've already marked it, it's 2 of them that they're at the same place, it's y equals 2.5. Your range and your min and max will be the same because your range is minimum to maximum. Okay, and last but not least, we need to do our increasing and decreasing intervals. Here's what I will tell you. Pick a highlighter and decide if you want to do increases listed first, so let's just do that. I start right here at the beginning, and I notice that I have an increase, and it happens still right there. Now I'm decreasing, don't want that. I increase, so I want that. Decrease. So what I need to do, you can use a ruler, you can use a highlighter, you can use a pencil, you can use anything that you want, but right here is where my increase starts. That's when x is 0. So I'm going to say from 0, and I'm going to right here as an increase, and that's when x is 1. So that's my first increase. My second increase starts right here. That's when x is 3. If you notice I was hitting 3 on the x-axis. And I'm going to go all the way over to when x is, looks like that's 5. So there's my increases. I highlight them, and then I look at the x-axis. Now I'm going to do my decreases. And with my decreases, I'm going to highlight I am decreasing here. You guys usually don't have a hard time with seeing it, you just need to know how to mark the values. So you can tell that's a decrease. My decrease starts at the top of that curve, which is happening at 1. So I'm going to decrease from 1 to 3. Then my next decrease starts at 5, and it goes to 6. So those are increases and decreases. If this is difficult for you, please make sure you try the assignment. It is the worksheet that will be attached underneath this video, and make sure you come to tutorials for any help that you may need.